Hey everyone, and welcome to the DarkCast. I'm your host, Jonathan Miley. The DarkCast is a bi-weekly discussion about video games divided into multiple one-on-one conversations between myself and the various writers here on DarkStation.com. Today is a shorter episode than normal as we gear up for our end-of-the-year content, so I'll have a word about that in just a moment. As for today, in Section 1, I talked to Alex Mateo about first-party games, some of the oddities that exist because of first-party games, and what the world might be like if there was only one super mega console. In Section 2, I talked to Kesinger about his frustrations with Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and whether or not it should be considered an Assassin's Creed game. For more information about the things we discuss, check out the show notes in this episode, which you can find on DarkStation.com. There you can also find the DarkCast interview series, as well as games, reviews, previews, and features. Be sure to stay tuned to DarkStation.com and the podcast throughout the month of December, as we will have multiple episodes covering our favorite games of the year, as well as all of our writers will be producing their top 5 lists for the year on the website. Anyway, you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, follow us on Twitter at darkstation_com, find us on Facebook, and email us at podcast@darkstation.com. As always, thank you so much for listening. Now on with the show. Welcome everybody to this segment of the DarkCast. Joining me today is Alex Mateo. How are you doing, Alex?
I'm doing well. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Glad to have you back on the show.
Thanks for having me back on. I'm enjoying the return of the DarkCast.
Me too. I feel like every conversation, like every time I talk to somebody on the DarkCast, it always starts with at least like 2 minutes of just being like, "Hey, we're back," and I'm so happy. It's nice.
Well, let's break that trend and start talking about our topic, huh?
Yeah, so in this segment, it was a couple of weeks ago now, but at Microsoft's big conference, they announced that they had purchased In Exile Studio and Obsidian, which are two relatively famous, like smaller indie RPG studios that have dabbled more in the kind of CRPG realm. Obsidian hails from the people that made the old Baldur's Gate games and stuff like that. And In Exile, I think, is also of similar ilk. I believe some of the founders of that made the original Wasteland, and they went on to make Wasteland 2 with Kickstarter and whatnot. But in some ways, it seems like really bizarre choices for Microsoft to pick up. That got me thinking about, like, first-party titles with video games. That, technically, these studios are now under Microsoft's umbrella, and they are part of Microsoft's first-party lineup, which they desperately need, because if you look at this past year as far as Xbox goes, they've had a whopping 3 exclusives, I think. They had State of Decay 2, which didn't do very well, and they had Sea of Thieves, which definitely didn't do very well, and Forza Horizon 4, which looks great, but I haven't dabbled in because I've never actually finished a Forza Horizon game. Those games are huge, and it's not a great lineup for this year, where you look at the PlayStation, we've had God of War, we've had Spider-Man, we've had Shadow of the Colossus, Nintendo has had like 12 Mario games released this year, they had Octopath Traveler, 2 Pokemon games, as they usually do. Super Smash Bros. Is either about to come out or has just recently been released whenever people are listening to this. And while it's not actually an exclusive, in our last segment where we talked about Starlink Battle for Atlas, and while that is not an exclusive, it does have some pretty nifty exclusive content for the Nintendo Switch. And so, I don't know. There's part of me that just kind of wonders, like, why do all the consoles need to be unique and have unique software? Like, when the 360 was kind of reigning king in that generation, while it had a lot of great first-party games, the thing that kind of made it the best platform was that it was where all of your buddies played Call of Duty and Madden and stuff. And I don't know, I'm not even phrasing the question correctly right now, but I'm just, I don't think I'm making a good argument for why do we need first-party titles. But maybe the frustration and confusion of first-party titles is coming across. How do you feel about first-party titles, Alex?
Well, I guess this topic dates back to my childhood, because I grew up with Nintendo, and I don't just mean Nintendo. I mean strictly Nintendo. Like, I grew up with NES, Super Nintendo, N64, and I did not touch Sega or Sony's consoles up until the PlayStation 2. But I didn't get a PlayStation 2 when it came out. I got it while the PS3 was out. So my first non-Nintendo console was a PS2 when the PS3 was already out. So I'm definitely I don't know. So I mean, for one, if you couldn't tell by anything that I've ever written for DarkStation, I love Nintendo, and I love the first-party games that they have, specifically because they make the games that I want to play. I want to play platformers. I want to play, fantasy adventures like Zelda. I want to play Pokemon. I want to play with the family-friendly but also just fun for everyone types of adventures that Nintendo is known for. That said, when I got my PlayStation 2, I was very happy to try out all the other things I've missed. Whether exclusive to PlayStation or just something that wasn't on Nintendo. And believe me, there were a lot of games that were just not on Nintendo that were on the other consoles. So I guess the question being, how do I feel about first-party games? Thinking from a realistic perspective, I think we need first-party games because games are a business. So without, let's say there was just, one big console, one big mega happy console where all the games came out for it and there were no exclusives because everything would be exclusive to that one, singular system. That's basically a monopoly. Let's call this fictional company Soninsoft, okay? So Soninsoft, the Soninsoft Xbox Station Switch is the one system to rule them all. They can make games. Basically, my argument is if there are no exclusives,
or if everything is exclusive, to use Syndrome's logic,
then what's the point of having different systems? Yes, there's the one person, let's say Jimmy buys Xbox and, Johnny buys Sony. Now they can't play together online because they got different systems. Why did they choose one system or the other? Without exclusives, it's really just, I don't know, price or because, either their friend got it or just because their parents, that's what they decided to get them for Christmas or whatever. So basically, I think it's all business. I think the first party exclusives are the games that drive me to at least buy a Nintendo system. That doesn't prevent me from buying Sony or Microsoft systems, but I will always get a Nintendo system as long as they make first party exclusives for their systems. And then I lost my train of thought, but I think without exclusives, you don't really have the company necessarily making something fine-tuned to what they do. Like for Nintendo, the Wii, Nintendo played to their own strengths and made something that no one else had, and that's why they had something that was both innovative and like really groundbreaking for games, whether you like it or not, right? They played to what their system was. They knew what they were making, and they had exclusives to back it up. You really wouldn't have that if you just didn't have exclusives. Like, I guess by arguing the counterpoint, it's just that without exclusives, what's the point of having another system? Like, what's the point of...
Sure, no, I think that's absolutely... I mean, you could say that's a counterpoint argument, but I think that would, in a way, be the reality of you wouldn't have multiple systems. You would have this, Soninsoft X Station.
Soninsoft copyright.
Yeah. Copyrighted by DarkStation, 2018.
Yes.
But I don't know. In some ways, I feel like that would actually be really nice. Kind of going back to your point about, if you've got Johnny and Billy and Mary Sue and whoever else, they all go to Walmart, go to Target, and they pick up the new console. And of course, they can play together because there's only the one console to get. You don't have to worry about, I got the one that can't play the new Spider-Man game, or I can't play the new Pokemon game, or whatever the case may be. But I don't know. I feel like it's just kind of weird looking at the current state. And I think it's, in a lot of ways, it's the Xbox that kind of draws this statement out. Because when you look at the PlayStation and you look at the Switch, I feel like they make games that give reason for those consoles to exist.
Yeah.
And when you look at the Xbox, you don't have that.
I mean, maybe
even their exclusives, and maybe it's just a time for Microsoft to just like sit down and really look at what they've done in the past, and maybe they need to make a different decision for what they're doing with the future. I don't know. But I don't know. There's part of me, though, that looks at the Xbox, and it's still a fine place to play all of the other third-party games that get released everywhere. But if you don't have something that is specific to that platform, why does that platform exist?
And, not to hate on Xbox, because I don't hate Xbox at all, but that's probably why it's not doing well.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. Microsoft does have to try harder. That's pretty much it. Like, there have been times when, any of, like, the top three right now, like Nintendo, Sony, Microsoft, have been in the bottom. And they really had to, like, hit it out of the park, like, next time. Like, Nintendo with the Wii U, like, boom, down. Like, then the Switch came along, and because they really thought, what was the Wii, what was good about the Wii U, besides, the first-party games, which no one played, by the way, because no one apparently had a Wii U.
Which is why they're re-releasing them all for the Switch.
Which is why they're re-releasing them all on the Switch, and I'm getting them all again on the Switch for some reason. But, like, the portability aspect, like, they really nailed that down, and now everyone wants every single game on the Switch, right? And then same with Sony, like, what was a big problem? Like, the price and stuff of the PS3. They eventually were able to, make back on the PS3, but the PS4, they really focused on trying to bring a great exclusive experience at, a lower price. Right. And I think that, I'm not sure what happened between Xbox 360 and Xbox One. I mean, I could point to a lot of names, maybe the fact that they called it Xbox One, but, there's that's just what happened with Xbox. And if they had first-party games or just even any exclusives that would drive an audience or cater to their audience, or cater to the people that would want an Xbox, then they could thrive. But I mean, that's it. Like, basically your question: what are they doing? What's the point right now?
It's a good question.
Mm-hmm.
I think part of the Xbox One's problem dates back to the success of the Xbox 360, similarly to the problems with the PS3 kind of stem from the fact that the PS2 was so successful.
Yep.
So you've got this console that is so massive and is doing so well, Yeah, when I was a child, every console was a Nintendo. Whether it was a Sega or an Atari or whatever, it was a Nintendo. And then in middle school, everything was a PlayStation. And then everything was an Xbox. Because you just have that console that kind of rises to dominance within a generation. I think Wii, even though it outsold everything like 12 times over, it was unique enough that no one ever thought anything else was the Wii, except for the Wii U. People were very confused on that.
Right.
But anyway, so Microsoft is coming off the high of the Xbox 360, and like I said, a lot of the success that they had were the timed exclusives with like Call of Duty games, and the fact that especially in that era, their online platform kicked everybody else's butt. And so when you've got games that are, heavily centered on being online focused, then it makes sense to play them where that experience is going to be the best. But when you get to the Xbox One, I feel like Microsoft was banking on the continued success of like, hey, everybody knows the Xbox brand. Everybody is just going to naturally migrate from the Xbox 360 to the Xbox One because, that's just what happens. But the problem is the last few years of the 360 and pretty much the entire Xbox One's life cycle, they have not had a ton of exclusives to get people to initially buy in on their console. So having those great third-party games is fantastic to keep people there, but personally, I don't think that's what draws you in. So I have a rule for when I buy a new console, and that is there have to be 5 games that I can only play on that console for it to be worth me picking that up. There's no such thing as a single killer app. I need 5. I basically want to spend as much money on video games as I do on the console. And so, I didn't get, like you were saying with the PS2, I didn't get a PS3 until the PS4 had come out. So you get to the Xbox One, and Microsoft is just banking on everybody coming over with these third-party exclusives, and then PlayStation 4 comes out the door. It's basically the previous generation all over again, just in reverse. You've got the one company that is really arrogant and is got their console overpriced compared to the other one that has recently been humbled. They're coming out scrappy. They're ready to throw some punches, and they end up winning. I think the biggest problem with the Xbox in its current state is that it's a weird thing to say, but I think they course-corrected too soon. Because with the PlayStation 3, Sony failed for several years. Yeah. Hard. The Xbox never failed, or the Xbox One never failed that hard. They changed things quickly enough. I kind of feel like because Sony stuck to their guns for long enough, they learned a really good lesson and applied that to the PlayStation 4 and made it a fantastic console. But with the Xbox One and with Microsoft with the Xbox One, I don't know. I feel like they never hit rock bottom, if that makes sense. And they haven't had to come up from that. So they took a dip, and they've been kind of wobbly ever since. But they've never, I don't know, they haven't had to face the music and really make those hard choices of how to correct. They just made a couple of, big sweeping corrections, axing the always online stuff and a few other things, and they were able to just kind of, like I said, wobble forward with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I also want to add that I think you kind of answered the question yourself by saying you only get a console if there are at least 5 exclusives.
Well, so that's my personal thing. I don't, usually other people stare at me when I tell them that like I require a console to have 5 exclusives that I only play there. And it's a weird system. I understand that. But
no, it's not weird at all. I mean, I already base what I'm going to get on if there are enough games that I want, then, or if there's like a big exclusive I want. So, basically the Nintendo games on Nintendo. But, for Sony, there were some things that I did want to pick up, like, Spider-Man, Detroit, stuff like that,
Sure.
So, I mean, I don't think it's a weird rule that you want to get exclusives. I think that's why people get a console over another one, because they want the certain exclusive. Sometimes it's because, of the online structure, but I think with crossplay, I think it's becoming less of an issue, which, by the way, I think Sony has been having more trouble easing up to crossplay compared to Nintendo, Microsoft, who basically are buds with crossplay. Like, that doesn't even have to be as much of an issue when players can play together regardless of system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I think that would be a great thing, because I'm pretty sure Fortnite has basically become cross-play everywhere.
Yep.
I know there were still some issues with the Sony side of that, with PlayStation 4 side of that, but there have been some really great strides toward that, which is good, because especially with online games, I mean, you need a population there to make the game good.
Yeah.
So having the most people available to play, just, I don't know, it's one of those things. I'm not the person behind the system architecture and having to make all those either like system decisions or business decisions, but just as a layperson, that just seems like a stupid simple decision to make. Let the people play together. But yeah, so I guess I answered my own question.
Good job.
Yay. Is there any exclusives, whether it's PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, that you're particularly looking forward to here with 2019 staring us in the face?
Yeah, with as far as 2019 games go, I am definitely looking forward to the new Pokemon. This is all just assumption that these games will come out in 2019, but we have Pokemon, Metroid Prime 4, the Yoshi's Crafted World, and of course Animal Crossing, and Luigi's Mansion 3 for Switch side. For Sony, I'm honestly not as sure of what exclusives I'm looking forward to, but I mean, I have a PS4, so when the time comes for an exclusive to come out, then I will hopefully be there. Sure. And for Xbox One, I am not even sure what's coming out.
Crackdown 3 and Ori Will of the Wisps.
I am interested in the new Ori, actually, but...
Did you play the original one? It is a
No.
fantastic game.
I have not, but I've always wanted to play it, and I would love to play it. The thing is, I wouldn't get an Xbox One just to play it, but I really want to play it.
I stand by that decision.
But I really want to play it.
Do you have a PC that can play video games by chance?
Yeah, I can play video games on my PC.
Okay. Because I think Ori is on Steam.
Yeah, I think that's also a thing with Microsoft, because like the PC is also kind of like Microsoft's second console. Sort of,
right.
So we're glad to see the PC doing well, by the way. Yeah. I've always believed in it since the beginning.
But yeah, Ori and the Will of the Wisp is probably really the only exclusive for the Xbox, which it's not even exclusive because I'm sure it will be on PC as well. But the first game is amazing, and I want to say it was towards the top of my top 5 the year that it came out. It is a lovely, lovely game. So yeah, that's what we're left here, folks. Go play Ori and the Blind Forest.
I think that's the takeaway message from here. Mm-hmm. Just get Ori, and that's about it. Yeah.
Yeah, wherever you can.
Yeah.
Which is probably going to be on a PC.
Yep.
Or an Xbox. Yeah.
Probably PC.
Welcome, everybody, to this segment of the DarkCast. Joining me now is Alan Kesinger.
Hello. Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Awesome.
I'm doing really, really great. And I'm excited to sit down and have a discussion with you, which I've been wanting to have for a while now. Little behind-the-scenes stuff for listeners at home. We have a spreadsheet on a shared Google Doc where I put down ideas and other people put down ideas for segments for the DarkCast. And this is one of the first ones that I put down when we first kind of relaunched the show. And it's the question of, should Assassin's Creed Odyssey be an Assassin's Creed game?
No.
And
Done. Cut. Print. We're good.
All right. That's the shortest segment we've ever had. Thank you for joining us for Alan Kessler. No. So it's something that you've seen on the internet, like, unless you've been under a rock, there are people that have been posing this question. And I think a lot of it stems from people that are serious about Assassin's Creed lore, which I almost can't say that with a straight face, because I've been out of Assassin's Creed for a long time. The last game that I finished was Black Flag, and that wasn't an Assassin's Creed game. I mean, that was a pirate simulator, and that's why I loved it. I never finished 3. The last real Assassin's Creed game that I really enjoyed would be Assassin's Creed Revelation. Which came out a long time ago now.
It did, yeah.
So I haven't played Origin in any amount that matters. I haven't played Unity at all. I never got around to play Rogue. Haven't played Syndicate. Except for, actually, I did, that was a free games with gold thing on Xbox at one point this year. And so I downloaded it, and I played the intro tutorial, which is actually like a relatively linear level, and it's like Assassin's Creed Uncharted, because at one point you're on a train and stuff, and it's I really kind of enjoyed that. And then I got to the open city and I was like, oh god, no, I'm not doing this again, and stopped playing it immediately. But anyway, so Assassin's Creed Odyssey is the first game that I've picked up in the series in a long time and started to actually enjoy. And it's really interesting because I don't know, I'm really ambivalent on whether or not this is a quote-unquote Assassin's Creed game or if it's just a Wonder Woman simulator, because honestly, I'm wearing the Amazonian gear, which gives me, I think 5% health back on all attacks that you do, and it gives me a little tiara. It's not the right colors, but it's basically Wonder Woman's outfit. It's great. But really, I don't know, so last year, Origins came out. You played it. You loved it, right?
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah, very much.
Okay. When you got done with it, you went back and played all of the Assassin's Creed games before. So I don't want to say it's your fault for being burned out on Assassin's Creed games, but maybe just a little bit.
I would say at this point I'm burned out with the current form of Assassin's Creed.
Which is interesting because Origins is only the second iteration in the...
Or Odyssey.
Right? Yeah, Origin. I don't know why they did 2 O games back-to-back.
Right,
That's ridiculous. So it's only the second one in the kind of new iteration of the franchise.
Yeah.
So I guess my question as far as lore goes, do you feel like this works as being an Assassin's Creed, even though you exist before the Brotherhood came about? You're using a spear, not a hidden blade, which is really just a hidden blade.
Right.
How do you feel about this being called an Assassin's Creed game?
I think the hardest thing to truck with was the big thing about Origins was that, and I can't remember if it was advertised as such, but with Origins, you are seeing the beginnings of the Assassin Brotherhoods, the origins of the Assassin Brotherhoods, if you will. There's a great scene in that game where it's kind of leading into the end game where Bayek and Aya, I think it is. It's been a while. It's been a year. where they're standing on the beach and they pick up a little bird skull and like it leaves the imprint of the assassin's logo in the sand. I'm like, dude, that's awesome. Like lore wise, this is awesome. This is exactly what I wanted to see. I wanted to see the start of the assassins and then like have it ultimately lead to the assassination of Julius Caesar. Fucking awesome. Great. And then it's like, okay, then we're making Odyssey, which takes place before and shows the beginnings of the assassin. I'm like, wait, no, you already did that. And you did a pretty good job of that. Why do we need to go back further? And from what I've been playing, like, you could easily... This could easily be its own standalone game.
Oh, sure.
The only tenuous grasp that this game has on the franchise is that it has a cult, which, spoilers for the DLC, is not the cult that's introduced in Origins. And you've got a magical spear, which is the Spear of Leonidas, which is, surprise, a precursor artifact.
Shocking.
It's just kind of like, huh, cool. And that's it. Like, there's no like any sort of like, it doesn't have that same sort of mystery and awe and like, holy crap, like my view of the world's completely shifted like Bayek had when he started going in deeper into his adventure. And so like remove that stuff and the game would play exactly the same. Like it doesn't, I mean, it's an Assassin's Creed game in name only. And lore wise, I mean, again, the cult you're fighting is not the cult that would eventually become the Templars. And like, I mean, it's just
so
like
it's interesting listening to you talk about this. I can picture myself, I don't know, about 10 years ago with Splinter Cell Conviction having released, and I was outraged by that game because it's not a Splinter Cell game. Like, Sam Fisher's all angry. Michael Ironside just sounds drunk. You can only kill people. You can't silently like knock people out. You can't pick up bodies and move them. Just everything about that game is more of a just third-person shooter, not a... And it takes this weirdly like personal approach to the story of like Sam Fisher's going after the people that killed his daughter and da-da-da. Like, it just doesn't feel like a Tom Clancy story. And I was just mad about that game. And I can just hear people going, so what? It's fun. And that's exactly what's going on in my head as you're talking about Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's like, who cares if, like, it's not the same cult? Like, it's people to kill on a map. You go up to them, you confirm the kill, you stab them, and you get stuff from it. Like, it's...
but see, the thing is, I did all this already. I did this for 40 hours. And to have it so egregiously the same as Origin, I mean, I guess I can't be too mad at that because Ubisoft, like, they had a good run with Origins, and they had all the tech there, and you know, all
which
it really...
Odyssey apparently was actually in development for like the past 3 years. It was developed alongside Origins. Yeah,
really?
So it wasn't like rushed out the door in the last year. It was developed by another studio, which, you know, normally Assassin's Creed games are done by Ubisoft Montreal.
Yeah.
But this one was done by one of their other which, I mean, everybody helps everybody at Ubisoft. There's always like 4,000 people working on a game. But this is the first time, and they talked about like the reason that they were able to get this game out in a year from Origin coming out was because the Origin team was directly like sharing assets and tech with the other team, with the Odyssey team, so that they weren't having to reinvent the wheel. Because if you go back and you look at Assassin's Creed 3, which is another game that was developed alongside other games being made, but the problem is when they made Assassin's Creed 2, you had another team go and make Assassin's Creed Brotherhood directly off of the skeleton of Assassin's Creed 2. And so it's a very, very similar game. You've got a couple of unique changes to it. Then you've got Revelation, which, again, is built off the skeleton of Brotherhood. And so you've got some other kind of, like, minute changes. The hook blade, still a huge fan of that. That was great. Being able to, like, stab somebody in the stomach and flip over their back as they're, like, hunched over. It was such a cool animation. Anyway, and then you've got Assassin's Creed 3, which, it's made alongside those other games, but it's made in isolation of them. So when you start playing it, it feels in some ways like several steps backwards. Like it's a sequel to Assassin's Creed 2, not a sequel to Assassin's Creed Revelation, which, even though they were minute, made a lot of good little gameplay changes and a few missteps like base defense. But with Odyssey, there wasn't that isolation. They weren't in individual silos.
And you know what? That makes me all the more angry at this game. Because
why so?
Because, again, it's the exact same thing. I mean, there's very little difference between Origins and Odyssey. Like, I feel I could put them up next to each other, and when you're holding up two slides and of two different pictures, you can see you can't see clearly because you've got two completely different images stacked on each other. If you were to stack Odyssey and Origins in front of on top of each other as a slide, it would be like a 1-to-1 image. If there's one thing I would desperately want the series to hold over from this, is to keep Cassandra's memory alive, because I think she's probably the best Assassin's Creed protagonist since Ezio.
Sure, yeah.
But it's just all the same. But one of my big thing with Origins at the time was that the level requirement, and the level requirement forces you to you're following on the story, which again I thought was pretty great for Origins. That the small story with Bayek and trying to avenge his son, and then just the sort of emergence of this group that would become the Templars. I thought that was great, but the problem is once you really kind of once you're starting to get into the developments of these stories, it's like, okay, here's this next quest, but you have to be 5 levels higher than you are. So go off into the world and do these side quests. And so it would always pump the brakes on a story that I was really interested in. And with Odyssey, it does that, it does that 10 times over. I feel I'm getting off track. Because this isn't an episode of why Alan hates Assassin's Creed Odyssey. It's whether or not Odyssey should be an Assassin's Creed game. So again, I think I am a big fan of Assassin's Creed lore. I didn't used to be. I hated the first game. I absolutely hated the first game because it was like, okay, here's an hour's worth of gameplay. Now you're going to be doing that for the rest of the game. I'm like, no, thank you. Then Assassin's Creed 2 came along, brought up a great story, and found a way to make that structure open up a little bit and give you more things to do. And from then on, I was hooked. I was in it. Abstergo, yeah. Desmond, yeah. Assassins, yeah. Let's go. Oh man, look at that! Look, Benjamin Franklin helped the Templars, it's just, it was awesome. It was great. It was fantastic. I have the Assassin's Creed visual encyclopedia, and I have and I love it. I mean, it's great. It's such a bonkers story that I just totally got into. And whereas I was like, I'm into this just because I want to see how Ubisoft's going to paint them, how Ubisoft's going to paint them into this corner. But like, I don't know, it just got fun. It's like, okay, here's a moment in history. How are they going to adapt it to kind of fit their Assassin Templar narrative, and like what leaps and bounds are they going to make the story fit? And then with Assassin's Creed Origins, and the present day stuff in the Assassin's Creed games too were kind of fun, mostly because the character dynamic between Sean and Desmond and Rebecca, they had.
I know Desmond as a name because that was
that was Noah
North.
Yeah.
But like those other people, I have no idea who you're talking about. I know that Kristen Bell was in the game.
Yeah.
And you like killed her and stuff. But
Yeah.
So like for me, first Assassin's Creed game I loved.
Yeah.
I know it's very bare bones. I can acknowledge that the game has issues.
Sure.
But being able to investigate like a particular target, and as you uncover clues, that target then gets revealed, which I think is part of the reason that I'm actually really enjoying Odyssey, is because the whole Cult of Cosmos thing, even though they're not Templars, which again, like I think actually the fact that they're not Templars is part of the reason that I like it, because I've been so overtired with Assassin's Creed lore for a long time. The fact that even though it's really just a name change, all intents and purposes, they're just Templars.
Right.
The fact that I put some new set dressing on it, like it's enough to make it feel new to me.
Sure.
But the fact that you uncover clues, you figure out all this stuff, and then when it comes assassination time, it's not this scripted event, which after Assassin's Creed 1, it became much more of a mission where there's like a specific way to kill this person. Where in Assassin's Creed 1, you've just got this dude who's standing in the middle of a bunch of people and he's giving a speech. And you need to figure out the best way to kill him. Which that's pretty much the way everybody with the Cult of Cosmos is. They're yours to figure out how to kill best. So I loved Assassin's Creed 1. The end of Assassin's Creed 1, where you get eagle vision and you see like blood smeared on the wall and all this, you got stuff about Atlantis. There's all kinds of crazy stuff from the other subjects that have been tested on before you. And I was like, oh yeah, let's go. Assassin's Creed 2 happens, and I love Ezio, but it did not do to the like modern day stuff what I wanted it to. And then you get further and further through these games, and I just got so tired of all of the quote unquote Assassin's Creed stuff. So I think we're both arriving at the same place of this doesn't need to be an Assassin's Creed game.
Right.
I'm totally fine with this just being a Greek fantasy RPG, and I think
it'd be better that way.
The game was, and you wouldn't even have to change very much, at all.
Yeah.
But it was about 2 months after the game came out that I finally picked it up. I picked it up used at a GameStop. I had a coupon. I paid like $30 for it.
Good price.
If this had just been Greek Fantasy, the RPG, the game, I probably would have been much more excited and possibly bought it like when it came out.
Yeah.
But the fact that it had Assassin's Creed stamped on it made me very hesitant to pick it up, and I basically ignored it throughout all of its all of the hype train, everything before it. I didn't read reviews about it. I was like, you know what, this game does not interest me at all. And then I watched a video talking about a side quest, which is actually kind of a retelling of the Oedipus story. And this guy, he has locked himself in a cage because an oracle told him that he was going to kill his mother and father. And so you start doing some side quests, and there's some really fun stuff with that, and I don't want to spoil it all, but basically it made me realize that they leaned a lot, stole from the Witcher 3 playbook, and
Mhm.
a lot of times it's not done nearly as well, but it's done well enough that on its own, it's good at being a Greek fantasy RPG. There are other issues with it. There are some weird things with the way that quests are given to you, where you'll have one story quest, and then it'll open up like 4 more quests, where really those are all just 4 objectives for your one quest. But for whatever reason, the designers of this game decided that you would get then 4 unique quests that all only have like 1 or 2 objectives on them, and you have to complete all 4 of those to complete the parent quest above it.
And you know what? That is the most infuriating thing about this game. And
the fact that when you get when you unlock a quest, like you talk to somebody
Yeah.
and it's over, the game doesn't automatically assign you that quest that you
Right.
just accepted.
Right.
You then have to pause the game, go to your quest, scroll down the 9,000 quests that you have available,
Yeah.
and select the one that you just accepted to then be able to track properly.
Yeah, and it makes me pine. Excuse me, makes me pine for the days where of previous Assassin's Creed games that were largely structured. That it was like, okay, you're going to talk to Benjamin Franklin, and he's going to tell you, oh, did you know that the key that I put on my kite was actually a precursor artifact? And I need you to go find it. And then you're like, okay, then you're on this mission that, sure, it's largely linear, except with, how you can, take enemies out and stuff like that. But I mean, it's a guided experience. It is a set piece in this game. But yeah, so the busy work in it is a killer. And once again, going off track and bringing it back on course. The one thing I did want to talk about as far as whether or not this should be an Assassin's Creed game is the present day stuff, which I know you're not really into because ever since Desmond left the picture,
Ever since before Desmond left
yeah,
the picture.
that's true.
Ever
That's
since
true.
I killed Kristen Bell and she was like a quadruple agent for the Assassins and the Templars, I was like, screw this.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah. But like the present day stuff in these 2 games couldn't matter at all.
So again, I would say it's never mattered except for in the first 2 games. So the fact that they actually acknowledge that this time and just let it not matter, I am so happy with it.
Before we go on, I cannot allow you to disparage the brilliant use of present day stuff for Assassin's Creed 4 where you're working for a video game developer. It's awesome. How could you not like that? It's like, hey, we need to tighten up those graphics on level 3. Oh, by the way, we need you to hack into the server so me, the sage, who gets reborn throughout history, can somehow find a way to make Space Juno come into the internet and take over the world. How could you not like that? How can you sit there, Jonathan, and tell me you don't like that?
Because it didn't matter. It was pointless. I didn't pay attention to it because it was terrible. That's how.
Oh my God. It was great. That stuff was awesome, especially since Rebecca and Sean would show up as, Rebecca was a courier and Sean was the coffee boy. It was great.
Of course they did. I have no idea what you're talking about right now.
But at any rate, there was always something in the present day stuff to keep me engaged. But with Origins and Odyssey, ultimately this stuff just doesn't matter. And it's funny because with Origins, there were a few parts of the game where you were forced out of the Animus and had to do some stuff in present day, which I know a lot of people complained about the first game. And with this one, it's not so much. It's almost negligible. If it weren't for certain chapter breaks where they pull you out and you have a 2-second exchange with the present day characters before going back in the Animus, I would have completely forgotten that it existed at all. And plus, there's the storylines for the present day stuff like doesn't matter. Like it's just wrote, oh, we got to get the piece of Eden before the Templars do. You know, with the first 3 games, at least it was building towards something. As ridiculous as it was building towards, here's this like global cataclysm that's going to happen again if we don't power up the precursor temple to create the Death Star shield over the planet Earth so it doesn't get fried by a solar flare. It was building towards something. These games, I feel like it's not building towards anything, and I don't think there's any direction for these present day characters, except to maybe try and find a way. Well, they did find a way to make the Assassin's Creed movie canon with the events of the present day stuff that's going on in Origins and Odyssey. But it's barely there. And when it is there, it's like, what is the point of this? Why are you taking me out of this other story that, for as barely there it is, it's far more interesting than anything in the present day, that's for sure. But you could take that out. You could take out the quote unquote Assassin's Creed stuff out of it, like the precursor artifacts and stuff like that, and it would work just fine as it is. I mean, it almost is already at this point. But through and through, it doesn't have to be. It could easily not be an Assassin's Creed game. I worry what the next Assassin's Creed game will look like, because I don't know if I have it in me to do another one of these type. And I gotta tell you, I miss the form and function and structure of the past games after Odyssey. I don't like it, Jonathan. And I like Assassin's Creed. I love it. I just don't like it.
So I'm just going to end this segment with saying I don't like Assassin's Creed anymore, and I love this game.
Fine. I guess at the end of the day, my feelings, my shouting, just goes to show that I really do care for the series, maybe more than I thought I did. But if I consider this to be my franchise, like these are the games I look forward to, and I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed.
Well, that does it for episode 3. Thank you so much for joining us. For Alan Kesinger and Alex Mateo, I'm Jonathan Miley. As I said, you can find out more information about the show on our website at darkstation.com. There you can find the show notes for this episode, as well as the DarkCast interview series, games reviews, previews, and features. Be sure to stay tuned throughout the month of December, as we will be having multiple episodes about our favorite games of the year, as well as every writer will be doing their own top 5 list for the year. Again, thank you so much for listening, and until next time, have a good one.